And I want to hear from Captain James if he has any stories, what have you, of Route Irish. Before I introduce him, Val, you take a minute if you like, and you go ahead and introduce him. But that's kind of off my heart right now. I cannot wait. Now, this is scripted, what Captain McCormick has to say today. Go ahead, Val.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of my first questions because Route Irish is well known as being the most dangerous in the world. And so, what happened? Like all these stories that are coming in, and I just want to use this platform as a way to connect with veterans that are watching at home. We know we're losing 26 every single day. And so having a place where we can talk about these experiences, that's scary stuff. And with so much PTSD, CPTSD, we need to know exactly what makes it the most dangerous, and we can talk about all that stuff. So, without further ado, yes, let's welcome Captain James to the show. Hello, Captain James.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Yeah, that was a hell of a road. Actually, you can see a scar that came from that road right there on my arm. I'll tell you, it's amazing. I got two scars on my leg that hair doesn't grow anymore, and you can see the divots from where bullets went in. And there's one thing to have your vehicle get shot, but boy, whenever some of those rounds get in, or you get a piece of shrapnel that gets stuck inside of you, it's you never forget that thing. That's for sure. And Route Irish. So Route Irish, there were several routes in Iraq, and I'm coming to you actually from Jacksonville, Florida. So I'm up in my room, and I'm here with a great Afghanistan war veteran, Teddy Daniels. So he is my new best buddy. Now I'm telling you, and he's a mountain of a man. You do any research on him, you're going to really enjoy this guy. He was shot over in Afghanistan. And if you remember, not too long ago, there was this crazy guy that was running for Senate up in Maine that, decided to, saying that he should have got killed, because, he doesn't agree with Teddy's politics. And I think that we run into a lot of that stuff wherever we go. And being a fellow Purple Heart recipient, him and I've had some great talks today and yesterday. And he did a presentation to the Vietnam Veterans of America, which was pretty awesome, talking about the future of Vietnam Veterans of America and why younger veterans would join in the Vietnam Veterans of America, and why that they would be proud to serve, within that organization, which is a 501 or a 501c19 congressionally chartered veteran service organization. So it's been a great week. But let's talk about Route Irish. Let's get back down to the nuts and bolts. Every one of those routes in Iraq were dangerous. The first route that I was shot on was Route 10, ASR Mobile. Mobile and Jackson kind of ran parallel to each other. And when that gentleman was speaking, he said, when you'd get up around Fallujah and Ramadi, that was a dangerous ass place. It really was. They were skilled at ambushes, and you got to understand, my job at that time was to protect convoys of trucks, like tractor and trailers. In some cases, we'd have up to 44 in a convoy. And I would have, maybe 4 gun trucks that would be circling and protecting them. If you take 44 trucks and you space them out, it's miles and miles of convoy. And, a lot of times you could have a truck that's hit, 6 trucks behind you and you wouldn't even hear it. Those are just the realities of it. You wouldn't hear the gunfire, or you wouldn't hear the, in some cases, even the IEDs, especially if they hit, further back from where you were at. And so I think all of these routes, especially in the beginning when I got there, we had no up armor on our vehicles. We were rolling in vehicles that were made to roll across the United States and Europe in peaceful environments. They definitely were not made for war until later. And so this is 2004 time period, and it was it was damn dangerous. And Route Irish was always one of those routes that seemed to always have crowds of vehicles. I don't ever remember going down Route Irish and not being shot at least once or twice. And it's 7.5 miles long is that route from leaving Baghdad International Airport to getting into the green zone. And the green zone is where you had you had the 1st Cav Division was there at the time. You had a lot of diplomats that were there. You had the infamous cross sabers in Baghdad. All of that stuff was in what they called the green zone. Surrounded, hardened city, get mortared, rocketed quite often. But you had diplomats living in there. You had families living in there. A lot of civilians living inside that compound. But it was dangerous as hell. And going in and going out, many of soldiers had just gotten country, and they haven't even been in country, haven't even taken their first dump, in Iraq, and they go down Route Irish and they either get wounded or killed. So a lot of people, pay the ultimate price just trying to get to their base. And then, or even worse, after they spent 365 or 380 days, however long they keep you there, you're going home. You're taking that route home. And many of them got wounded, and in some cases, unfortunately, killed, thinking, I'm going home. I'm flying home tonight. And then the next thing you know, you're in a hospital or you're dead. Why was the route so dangerous? I think if you look at, there's a couple of videos. I think I sent you all guys one of those videos of this very short engagement where, a guy's shooting at this building, looks like it's about ready to fall down. There were buildings like that all up and down Route Irish. There were, high tower buildings. I'm talking, 19, 20 floors up. Lots of places to hide, lots of grass, lots of foliage, lots of ditches. A lot of people think, well, it's just a wide open desert. No, not really. Not when you got into the Baghdad area and along this Route Irish. And on this particular day that I'm going to talk to you about, I'm going to talk to you about I went down Route Irish 4 times in one day. Granted, a lot of people go down Route Irish once going in to theater and once going out, and that was good enough for them. But one day to do 4 times, Easter Sunday, 2004, and it was following an attack on Baghdad International Airport. They call it the attack on BIAP, B-I-A-P, and that is a well-storied, well-documented incident that occurred when about a dozen soldiers, pushed back an attack by, there were over 100 insurgents out there. It's just straight up fact. And I've heard people say, there were probably 200 or whatever. And I'm like, well, let's not stretch this out. I tell you, I know what I saw out there. And there was probably, at least 100 bad guys out there. And for certain, we know the ones that were killed out there in a relatively short order of time. And they attacked this base camp on Easter Sunday whenever there was an agreement to not have, combat action on Sunday. The first thing they did is they attacked a convoy that was coming in into the airport. And we were listening to these guys getting attacked, on the radio, and me and my guys, decided that we wanted to go help the rescue element to get them out of there. And as we were going out, we looked and we saw a helicopter fly out, an Apache helicopter, and that thing got shot down and killed both those pilots. It was was devastating to see that. And again, it's April 11th, 2004. And we're starting to get all these reports of people being killed, and medevacs, being called all over the country. So, they didn't really give a damn about our most holy holidays, but we were expected to respect Ramadan and everything else. And for the most part, we did. But when you're dealing with a culture that is so vicious, and these weren't just your standard everyday run a day terrorists. This was part of Muqtada al-Sadr's Mahdi militia, and Mahdi militia men were extremely radicalized people that followed a cleric, an Iraqi cleric that was very, tied to the Iranian regime. Here's another thing where the Iranians started sticking their nose into it. So some Iranians were actually in theater fighting with the Mahdi militia, from their Republican Guards or RPG, whatever the hell they call them. And so, we were killing Iranians and al-Sadr's militia. I mean, so there was definitely, some factual, easy to prove things that happened. But they were masters at attacks, and they were masters at utilizing and looking for the soft underbelly of the military, which was indeed the transportation corps, which was indeed, your logistics, the things that are needed so that everyone can get supplies or whatnot. I mean, look, nothing moves unless the Army can't move without fuel. They can't fight without ammunition. There's a lot of stuff that we take for granted, and getting that stuff to where it needs to go requires a serious mission. And I don't think that anybody took that serious until after that week. Now, I had a vehicle, they called it the Zebra Humvee. I mean, and you got to understand, I painted that thing, with these stripes, these crazy ass stripes on it. And the doors that you see on there, we just took them off at that point because there was no need to have doors on, because my guys are constantly kicking them open and, and needing to get out to fight anyways. And so while we had the doors on in some of the initial engagements, running Route Irish, we took the doors off. And because then the bullets, we didn't have to sit and listen to the bullets hitting the doors anymore. They could just pass right through the open ways there, and then you could just hear them zip by your head. And there was a lot of that happened. And so I credit our survival with divine intervention more than, skill and ingenuity. But the attack on Baghdad International Airport was significant. It was significant because it was the first all-out frontal assault on a U.S. military base in Iraq at that time. Earlier that week, that same force had attacked a Ukrainian unit in Al-Qut, Iraq, not far from where Baghdad was at. And they overran the Ukrainian base. And those Ukrainians had to evacuate the base because Muqtada al-Sadr and his militia overwhelmed them. I mean, so we're not talking about, the Ukrainians have proven their mettle, their strength in this war. The Russians have been trying like hell to defeat them for a long time now. And I'm sure that they put up a tremendous fight, when al-Sadr's militia came in. But they just overwhelmed them with firepower. They overwhelmed them with, combined arms. They used mortars. They used RPGs. They operated just like a standard Iranian army unit would operate. And it's because a bunch of them were out there giving commands. If you watch the video, there's a documentary made about the warrior ethos by the Army, and a historian named Richard Kilblane has written a lot. Now, Richard, Kilblane didn't just, talk to soldiers. He flew over there. He actually visited the sites. He actually made multiple trips up and down MSRs and collected, stories and data and videos. Thank God, because there were tons of videos shot of this stuff. And, he brought it up many times, when we first met. He's like, that was pretty significant. And I was like, well, we're just down doing our job, man. He's like, well, you really wasn't just doing your job. He said, because that base camp was full and only about a handful of you went up to that wall to stop the invaders. And that's a true story. Nobody can deny that. I mean, it's well documented. There were a lot of people that came up after the first 15, 20 minutes because the fire was so thick, people could not move, even in the compound behind us, because many of the videos were shot by truck drivers that were hiding under trucks, or they were in a position to where they could see. And even as far back as the chow hall, you watch the videos and you can hear the zip and the zing of the bullets that are coming back there. And you're looking at this small group of defenders, and well, that was us. We drove our Humvee up on the mound, and I was on the 50 cal, and I blew through 500 rounds, on a 50 caliber machine gun, trying to keep people down and shooting. And then at a certain point into the battle, we brought up a Mark 19 to try to take out some of the mortar positions that I couldn't reach with the 50 cal because they were behind the building. And you need to be able to lob rounds in. But with the helicopter being shot down earlier, we couldn't get air support to come in and support us. And then we didn't get artillery fire because there was a village that was in and around the area. So, it was the perfect storm. We fought that battle for about 35 minutes, and then some tanks happened to be on the back of a truck, and they drove off the trucks, and they brought some tanks up on the berms, and they replaced us. And we go back, and we're getting some water, replenishing our ammo, and it's like, wow, man, that was just crazy. Can't believe it. All this carnage out there. And that's why I tell you the story about the what I noticed about the 50 caliber machine gun is when you hit somebody with that thing, they turned in, it was like a pink puff of dust, man. I've never seen anything like it. It's like the whole human body explodes from the impact of this thing. It's the most violent thing that I've seen, ever. It was, and these guys were running right into it, so they weren't afraid. So you had no choice; you had to kill these people. It wasn't like there was an option, to say, well, can we talk about that? There was no talking about anything. These guys were going to come into that base camp. We shot 2 guys with jihad vests on that exploded. Okay, that had already crossed the creek, and were just waiting to blow a hole into that wall so they could run in and self-detonate. Now, if you self-detonate next to a U.S. Army fueler or a truck full of ammunition, the whole compound was full of trucks, by the way. You couldn't hardly move in that place. It was woefully overfull. How many people could they have killed? Hundreds, maybe 200, 300. I don't know. But they were definitely trying to kill as many Americans as they could on a holy Christian holiday. Don't think for 1 minute that there wasn't an intent. And I know that some people, in the military, they're so worried about hurting somebody's damn feelings, by telling them the truth. But why else would you be so intent on killing us on Christmas and Easter if you weren't trying to send a message, to the, or Hanukkah? They definitely like to try to kill, people, during Hanukkah. And this is true. This is not a lie. This is well documented. Intel guys have picked this stuff up, and I promise you, the intent was to kill as many Americans as they could kill. And they they very well could have done that. We just happened to be at the right place at the right time, and I had a crew of soldiers that is absolutely, unquestionably the bravest men that I've ever served with in my life. And my driver, Brian Noble, I've talked about him many times. The most under-recognized soldier in the Iraq War is Sergeant Brian Noble, and he got a Bronze Star with V and a Purple Heart. He should have a Silver Star for that day, 100%. And I once again went to Senator Blackburn about that, but you had Brandon Lawson, you had Anthony Richardson, you had Ralph Blue, and these were my guys. Okay, these were my guys in the initial, first 10 minutes of this, and we, we were looking at this from after coming out of an ambush. You got to understand, we had been ambushed 2 days before, and I'd gotten shot, in the hand. And took a bullet to the ballistic vest, had a bullet ricochet off my helmet. I'd been shot 2 weeks before that in the leg as well. So, I mean, I was very fortunate. Yeah, there's my bloody handprint on the, if you ever go to the museum at Fort Eustis, Virginia, you'll look at that. And that flare is from the original ambush going in on April 7th. And I had been shot through the hand and had been knocked down into the bottom of the vehicle. And there were two guys that were coming up on our right rear. And I grabbed the first thing I could grab to shoot at them, and that was that damn flare. And I used it as a direct fire weapon to shoot at these guys so I could grab my rifle and then engage both of them. I think it's important that people understand that nobody dies easy. There's nobody. Me, I don't die easy. You don't die easy. The enemy don't die easy. But they do die, and it's not like the movies. When I've engaged two guys at the back of my Humvee. One guy just thrown a hand grenade, almost got it inside of our vehicle, and when I shot him, I literally wrote about this in the book. You could see a piece of his scalp flying off the top of his head. And he went into a violent set of convulsions that were, it impacted me for the rest of my life, to see somebody convulsing and bouncing and then, reaching over and shooting somebody else that crumples up. And when the human body releases their blood like that, it's just unbelievable. It pulls out like like a river. I mean, it's crazy. I've never seen anything like it. And but you remember little things like that. And after the Battle of Baghdad International Airport, we're coming in and we're starting to talk about what we're doing next, and we get the call that we got to get some of these trucks out of here. And there were 56 trucks that had ammunition, had supplies, parts, fuel. I mean, there was all kinds of stuff. PLL is what they call it, oils and lubrications, all important stuff for the 1st Cav Division. They said it's got to go to the green zone. There's one route to the green zone. And when the guy said, he said, one route Irish. I'm like, shit, I know about Route Irish. And so I worked with this guy, Lieutenant Danforth, and he was a transportation officer. And I wasn't a transportation officer, I was basically I was an armor officer, was branch detailed air defense artillery that ended up going to a transportation unit to do convoy security. It's just the way that it worked out. As I pulled my crew together, we had 4 gun trucks. We broke it down into 4 serials of 14 trucks each. And when we first pulled out the gate, there was a patrol that was coming in, and these guys were hauling ass again. They stopped right at the gate, said, "Hey, wait a minute, where are you going?" And I'm up on the 50 cal, so we're going to the green zone. He said, my God, he said, this route is route black. He said, there's IEDs, there's small arms fire, there's snipers. He said, there's people all over the place. He said, you know, you got to be careful. God be with you, or something like that. I mean, it was kind of crazy. But anyways, when you run through Route Irish, you know, you're in it, and the enemy starts shooting at you right about within that first mile. And then you fight your ass off 7.5 miles to get in there. And I mean, I'm telling you, you're getting shot at, you're getting, you know, mortared, you're getting RPGs, you know, and all of this while you're, you know, I'm on a 50 cal, I'm talking on a radio, my drivers are driving, my gunners are gunning, and the truck drivers are driving. And that's all I wanted them to do. I said, keep driving, just keep driving, get to the gate. So we drive all through that ambush. We get to the gate, and the damn guards at the gate, you know, want us to get out and ground guide. And I'm like, this is some stateside bullshit here. You know what I mean? And, you know, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And then the rear of the convoy is getting attacked. So I had Noble pull our vehicle up to the rear of the convoy, and we're sitting there, you know, and he's out of the truck with his 203 grenade launcher, and he's lobbing 203 grenades, you know, 40 millimeter grenades, and I'm shooting the 50 cal, you know, and a guy walks right out in the middle of the road, and I'm like, with an RPG, like he's just going to walk right up and shoot us right in the ass, you know, and of course everybody just blows him to smithereens. The guys didn't lack courage, I'll tell you that. Maybe brains, but not courage. When we get there, we get ammunition because, you know, we're shooting all the way in, and we head back. So we have to fight our way back out Route Irish on the other side of the road, pick up the next convoy, turn around, come back. I mean, they threw everything at us. For those first 3 runs, they threw everything. So we go up the second time, fight our way back through. Hell, they tried to ram our convoy with a bus. And it was just utter violence. Bullets ricocheting through. I mean, you know, everybody on my vehicle got shot and wounded. Everybody got wounded. More than once got wounded. And I can remember just being able to look and see the daylight coming through the side of this vehicle, in the back of the vehicle, where bullets have just ripped all through there. And I'm thinking, how did I not get hit? You know, and bullets are whipping between our legs and under our arms. And, you know, I mean, I had a bullet that went through my pants leg, man, didn't touch my leg. I mean, this is the stuff that really happens. The third round you go through, bam, 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 same thing. By the fourth round, I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, man. I mean, I thought we've killed everybody in Iraq, but they still gave it to us. You know what I mean? And they were shooting at us from every angle. Buildings, cars, sides of the road, you know, I mean, shit, it was unbelievable. Throwing hand grenades out in the road. You could see them. You could see RPGs going zipping across the sky where they're trying to hit a truck. But amazingly, we get every truck into the green zone. It's getting dark. Going to the green zone. It's like right before sundown. So it's starting to get dark. Me and my guys, we get a picture. They snap a picture of us underneath the cross swords. And that picture ended up on the front page of Soldier of Fortune magazine. Route Irish was no joke, guys. And I tell you, I'd love to sit here and tell you more stories about it. And I will at some other time, but I have got to go to another meeting right now. So I am at a convention, but I will tell you that anybody that has truly been up and down Route Irish, you know, it is, you know, that song that I sent you about Route Irish, and that's sung by a West Virginian, by the way, a guy from West Virginia. So I can feel that every time I hear that song, and I remember it every day. And when you see the video of the guys, you know, shooting and running out of ammunition, you know, by the time they get past one building, you know, that was less than a quarter of a mile going down Route Irish. You had 7 and a quarter more to go at that point. So it was deadly, and it was especially deadly on Christian holidays. So God love you guys.
Captain McCormick. I'm spellbound listening to this story. Thank you for your service, sir. Are you kidding me?